Hello and welcome to our SPOC, or Scrum Product Owner Certified course. In this session, we will look at one of the 5 aspects of SPOC framework, quality. We will discuss the following: definition of quality and purpose of quality aspect, relationship between quality, scope, and business value, the concepts of acceptance criteria and prioritized product backlog, quality management in Scrum, responsibilities of Scrum Core roles pertaining to quality management, and finally, comparison of Scrum with traditional project management with respect to quality management in projects. Let us begin by understanding the purpose of quality aspect. The purpose of the quality aspect is to define quality as it relates to projects and to provide Scrum approach on how to plan and achieve the required quality levels. Quality aspects provides scope for implementation of continuous improvement in management of a project and thus enhances the probability of project success by delivering products that meet the needs of the customer. In Scrum, the term product can be used to refer to any deliverable or output of a project, such as a product, service, person, process, or any other deliverable. For example, the deliverable of a recruitment project can be hired staff. The deliverables of a training project can be training documents, training schedule or plan, training sessions, etc. Now, let's look at how Scrum defines quality. In Scrum, quality is the ability of the completed project's deliverables to meet the agreed acceptance criteria and done criteria to enable the customer to achieve the expected business value. For example, let's say an organization undertakes a project to install solar panels with the business objective of reducing its operational expenses by 15%. Then the quality and success of the project's products will not just be judged by their ability to meet the specifications, but also by their ability to enable the organization in realizing the stated business objectives. To ensure that a project meets quality requirements, Scrum adopts an approach of continuous improvement whereby the team learns from experience and stakeholder engagement. A prioritized product backlog is used to capture the requirements that enable the Scrum team to develop product in each sprint as agreed with the product owner. The prioritized product backlog is updated with any changes in requirements and is never considered complete until the closure or termination of the project. As the prioritized product backlog is constantly updated, the Scrum team is kept updated on the changes in the requirements, enabling the team to create deliverables that meet the current business needs and stop work on products that are not in line with the changing requirements. Scrum also requires work to be completed in increments during sprints. This enables the Scrum team identifying errors and defects early through repetitive quality testing, rather than when the final product or service is near completion. Thus, continuous improvement with repetitive testing optimizes the probability of achieving the expected quality levels in a Scrum project. The scope of a project is the total sum of all the product increments and the work required to develop the final product. For example, let's say you are constructing a house. The scope for the project can be as follows: 3,000 square foot, 4 bedrooms, an insulated garage, efficient gas furnace with programmable thermostat. The quality elements can be: the house is compliant with all the local building laws and regulations. The garage is able to accommodate 2 large-size or 3 medium-sized cars, etc. Scope and quality requirements for a project are determined by considering the following factors: the business need that necessitates the project, the organization's capability and willingness to address the identified needs, the current and future needs of the target audience. If we consider the same construction of a house example, the scope and quality for the project will be determined by the needs and capability of the owner. For instance, The number of bedrooms and their size will depend on the number of occupants and their needs. The prioritized product backlog contains the requirements of the project. The product owner continuously grooms the backlog to prioritize key requirements high so that they can be delivered in the earliest sprint. During sprint execution, the product owner, customer, and the Scrum team can discuss the list of features of the product to comply with the changing needs of the customers. And depending on the need, they can stop the current sprint and begin a new sprint to accommodate the new requirements, or agree to deliver the new requirements in a future sprint, or decide not to deliver that feature or requirement as part of this project. Quality and business value. Quality and business value are closely linked. To determine the business value of a product, it is important to understand the business needs that drives the requirements of the product. The scope and quality for the project is captured in the project's prioritized product backlog. A keen understanding of the quality and scope of a project enables the product owner to correctly map the outcomes and benefits the project is expected to provide. He or she can use this knowledge to groom the prioritized product backlog by attributing high priority to the most valuable requirements that solve the customer's problems or meet their needs. Scrum believes in maintaining a sustainable pace of work, which helps improve quality over a period of time. Let us discuss what prioritized product backlog and acceptance criteria are. Let's begin with prioritized product backlog. As discussed earlier, it is a single requirements document that defines the project scope and quality by providing a prioritized list of features of the product or service to be delivered by the project. The prioritized product backlog is created in the Create Prioritized Product Backlog process by the product owner. It contains user stories, epics, estimates for user stories, and user story acceptance criteria. User stories. User stories are usually written by the product owner and are designed to ensure that the customer's requirements are clearly depicted and can be fully understood by all stakeholders. User stories adhere to a specific, predefined structure and are a simplistic way of documenting the requirements and desired end-user functionality. A user story tells you three things about the requirement: who, what, and why. For example, for a project developing a new model of laptop, a user story can be, as a user, I should be able to transfer X amount of data in Y seconds. User stories are subjective, hence each user story will have associated user story acceptance criteria, which are developed by the product owner according to his or her understanding of the customer's requirements. Acceptance criteria provide the objectivity required for the user story to be considered as done or not done during the sprint review meeting. These also provide clarity to the team on what is expected of a user story by removing ambiguity from requirements and aligning expectations. At the end of every sprint, the product owner will use the user story-specific acceptance criteria and done criteria to verify the completed deliverables. And if the deliverables meet the specified criteria, then the associated user stories are considered done. And the user stories of rejected deliverables can be added back to the updated prioritized product backlog by the product owner during the grooming prioritized product backlog process to be completed in future sprints. This is summarized by Figure 5.1 presented here. Epics. Some user stories may be too large to handle within a single sprint. These large user stories are often called epics. Once epics come up in the prioritized product backlog to be completed in an upcoming sprint, they are further decomposed into smaller user stories. Estimates of user stories. The user stories are estimated by the team using the various estimation techniques. After estimation, the team commits to a subset of estimated user stories that they can complete in the current sprint. These estimated and committed user stories will become part of the sprint backlog. Although the product owner approves the initial user stories for a sprint, the final decision about which user stories, among those approved by the product owner, should be chosen for the sprint lies with the Scrum team. However, If required, the Scrum team can consult the product owner to determine user stories to be completed in a particular sprint. Now that we understand Prioritized Product Backlog and what it includes, let us understand acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria are unique to each user story and are not a substitute for a requirements list. The product owner should understand that a user story is considered done only when all acceptance criteria for that user story and generic done criteria are met. Scrum projects operate in time-boxed sprints, with a dedicated sprint backlog for each sprint. Often, the last bit of work might be the most complicated part of a user story and might take longer than expected. If incomplete user stories were given partial credit for being done and carried over to the next sprint, then the progress of the subsequent sprint could be disrupted. Therefore, the done status is black and white. A user story can only be either done or not done. Minimum done criteria. A higher-level business unit may announce mandatory minimum done criteria, which then become part of the done criteria for any user story for that business unit. Any functionality defined by the business unit must satisfy these minimum done criteria if it is to be accepted by the respective product owner. The introduction of this done criteria may lead to a cascading set of done criteria for the portfolio, program, and project. The overall quality standards, guidelines, and templates for an entire portfolio are set by the portfolio product owner, while the minimum done criteria for programs are set by the program product owner. Thus, the done criteria for a user story in a project will implicitly include all the minimum done criteria for the higher levels as applicable. Definition of done. The major difference between done criteria and acceptance criteria is that acceptance criteria are unique for individual user stories, whereas done criteria are a set of rules that are applicable to all user stories in a given sprint. As with the acceptance criteria, all conditions of the done criteria must be satisfied for the user story to be considered done. Done criteria are a set of rules that are applicable to all user stories in a given sprint. General done criteria for user stories can include all or any of the following: completed user stories to be reviewed by team members other than those who have developed the user stories, completion of unit testing of the user stories, completion of quality assurance tests, completion of all documentation related to the user story. All issues are fixed. Successful demonstration of the completed user story to stakeholders and/or business representatives. A clear definition of done is critical because it helps remove ambiguity and allows the team to adhere to required quality norms. The definition of done is typically determined and documented by the Scrum guidance body. And the Scrum team should use a checklist of the general done criteria to ensure a task is finished and the result meets the definition of done, DOD. Acceptance or rejection of prioritized product backlog items. Toward the end of a sprint, the respective business unit and stakeholders participate in a sprint review meeting. In the meeting, the Scrum team demonstrates the product increments to the product owner, sponsor, customer, and users. Product owner uses the agreed acceptance criteria and done criteria to accept or reject a particular user story completed in the sprint. Particularly, completed user stories are rejected as not done and moved back into the prioritized product backlog. And the Scrum Master has to ensure that the acceptance criteria for all user story are not changed in the middle of a sprint. But if a major requirement needs to be changed, then the current sprint can be stopped and a new sprint planned to accommodate that change. Now that we understand prioritized product backlog, acceptance criteria, and done criteria, let us discuss quality management in Scrum. One of the biggest advantages of Scrum's approach to quality management in a project is that it enables the customers to become aware of any problems in the project early. It helps them recognize if a project will enable them to achieve the expected outcomes, realize the benefits, and meet the objectives or not. In Scrum, quality is not just about meeting metrics, but also about customer satisfaction and a working product. This distinction becomes very important from the customer's point of view because they are the ones investing time and money in the project. The customer is the most important stakeholder for any project. Therefore, it is important to understand the customer's needs and requirements. The voice of the customer, VOC, can be referred to as the explicit and implicit requirements of the customer, which must be understood prior to the designing of a product or service. Generally, in a Scrum environment, it is the product owner who represents the voice of the customer as he or she focuses on the business requirements and objectives and defines the required product to meet those objectives. The product owner can benefit greatly from the guidance available from the Scrum guidance body, either in the form of quality documents and standards or quality experts. These specialists should work with the product owner and the customer to ensure the user stories are of appropriate level of detail and information, since user stories are the basis for success of any Scrum project. For any Scrum project, the customers can be internal, that is, within the same organization, external, that is, outside the organization. For example, in a project of developing a new process for handling customer queries, there will be customers who are internal as well as external to the organization. The internal customers can be the operations staff who will be using the new process, the technical staff who will take care of the technical aspects of the process after the process is designed and implemented. The external customers can be the end users for whom the new process is developed. It should be noted that the external customers are not directly involved at the Scrum team level and, instead, interact primarily with the product owner. Now let's discuss Scrum's approach to quality management in a project. Quality management in Scrum is facilitated through three interrelated sets of activities. They are quality planning, quality control, quality assurance. Quality planning. One of the guiding principles of Scrum is to develop the functionality of the highest priority to the customer first and provide a potentially shippable product at the end of every sprint. Less important features are developed in subsequent sprints or left out altogether according to the customer's requirements. This approach gives the Scrum team the required time to focus on the quality of essential functionality. A key benefit of quality planning is the reduction of technical debt. Technical debt refers to the work that teams prioritize lower, omit, or do not complete as they work towards creating the primary deliverables associated with the project. Technical debt is also referred to as design debt or code debt, and it accrues over the duration of the project and must be paid in the future. Some causes of technical debt can include quick fix and creating deliverables that do not comply with standards for quality, security, long-term architecture goals, etc. Inadequate or incomplete testing. Improper or incomplete documentation. Lack of coordination among different team members or different Scrum teams working in isolation with less focus on final integration of components required to make a project or program successful. Poor sharing of business knowledge and process knowledge among the stakeholders and project teams. Too much focus on short-term project goals instead of the long-term objectives of the company. This oversight can result in poor quality working deliverables that incur significant maintenance and upgrade costs. In Scrum projects, any technical debt is not carried over beyond a sprint because deliverables should meet defined acceptance and done criteria for them to be accepted and to be considered done. As a prioritized product backlog is groomed and user stories are prioritized, the team creates working deliverables regularly, preventing the accumulation of significant technical debt. The Scrum guidance body can also help in decreasing technical debt by providing appropriate documentation, and definition of processes for the project. To maintain a minimal amount of technical debt, it is important to define the product required from a sprint and the project along with acceptance criteria, any development methods to be followed, and key responsibility of Scrum team members in regards to quality. Defining acceptance criteria is an important part of quality planning, and it allows for effective implementation of quality control and quality assurance activities during the project. Technical debt is a very big challenge with some traditional project management techniques where development, testing, documentation, etc. are done sequentially and often by different people. As a result, technical debt accrues, leading to significantly higher maintenance, integration, and product release costs in the final stages of a project's release. Also, the cost of changes is very high in such circumstances if problems surface in later stages of the project. Scrum Framework prevents issues related to technical debt by ensuring that done deliverables with acceptance criteria are defined as part of the sprint backlog, and key tasks including development, testing, and documentation are done as part of the same sprint and by the same Scrum team. Sustainable pace is the pace at which the team can work comfortably to achieve the defined objectives. It refers to the ideal velocity of work without compromising on the quality of deliverables and the quality of life of the team members creating the deliverables. It is the pace of work that the team can sustain over a considerable period of time. Maintaining a sustainable pace is one of the most important tenets of Scrum. Sustainable pace results in increased employee satisfaction, stability, and increased estimation accuracy, all of which ultimately leads to increased customer satisfaction. To develop a truly high-quality product and maintain a healthy work environment, it is important to implement continuous integration rather than delaying the integration work until the end. Continuous integration also enables Scrum to provide an adaptive mechanism for project management in which a change in requirements can be accommodated without significantly impacting overall project progress. Another advantage of sustainable pace and continuous integration is the ability to provide value at frequent intervals. The Scrum team should continuously develop, test, and integrate the functionalities of each Prioritized Product Backlog item, PBI, in every sprint. It is also important from the team's point of view to ensure that the effort expended in the current sprint is similar to the effort spent in the preceding sprint in order to sustain an even pace throughout the project. This helps the team avoid phases of intense work and burnout, ensuring that they are always in a position to put in the required level of effort to accomplish the planned tasks. Now that we have discussed what quality planning is, let us understand quality control and quality assurance. Quality control refers to execution of planned quality activities by the Scrum team in the process of creating deliverables that are potentially shippable. It is important to not only focus on quality of deliverables to be developed, but also on processes to plan, develop, and verify those deliverables. Continuous improvement is an integral part of Scrum's approach to quality management. To achieve continuous improvement, quality control includes activities for learning from each set of completed activities. During the retrospect sprint meeting, team members discuss lessons from the current sprint which can be used for future sprints and projects. These lessons act as inputs into continuous improvement and contribute to the improvement of quality management and project management as a whole. Quality assurance includes activities to assess processes and standards that govern quality management in a project to ensure that they continue to be appropriate and relevant for the project on hand. Quality assurance activities are carried out as part of the work required to develop, verify, and approve the deliverables. In fact, quality assurance is an integral part of the definition of done. The deliverable isn't complete until all the appropriate quality assurance activities associated with it are carried out. Often, quality assurance is demonstrated during the sprint review meeting. Product owners derive confidence from quality assurance activities that each team continues to agree and comply with the defined quality standards during and at the end of the project. End-to-end quality assurance activities can be implemented either during final testing of the product, at the time of a release, or at the end of a sprint. The product components that have defects can be incorporated as Prioritized Product Backlog items, PBIs, which can be worked upon either by the team or by one person at predefined times during the sprint, depending on the number and type of defects. Whatever appropriate, the Scrum guidance body can define the processes and documents on processes, standards, and quality norms that can be referred to by Scrum teams during the project. This ensures that applicable quality norms are followed by all projects within the company. Plan, Do, Check, Act PDCA cycle. The Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle, also known as the Deming or Shewhart cycle, was developed by Dr. W. Edwards Deming, considered the father of modern quality control, and Dr. Walter A. Shewhart. The following are some important points of Deming's philosophy. Deming's theory of profound knowledge advocates what management should do in order to create an environment in which each employee can make significant contributions to quality improvement. When management is able to provide a conducive environment and is able to motivate its employees to improve quality on a continuous basis, each employee will be able to make a contribution towards creation of a superior quality product. Deming modified Plan, Do, Check, Act to Plan, Do, Study, Act PDCA because he felt the term study emphasized analysis rather than simply inspection, as implied by the term check. Scrum and the Deming-Shewhart PDCA cycle are iterative methods that focus on continuous improvement. Figure 5.3 illustrates how the PDCA cycle is implemented in a project through the Scrum processes. Table 5.6 summarizes the core quality management responsibilities of the core roles in Scrum. This is covered in more detail in our section on organization aspect. Please read through this table before ending this video. We have until now discussed Scrum's approach to quality management in detail. Let us complete this chapter with a discussion on how quality management in Scrum is different from traditional way of managing quality in a project. Scrum and traditional project management methods have some similarities in the aspect of quality planning, but differences arise with respect to how quality control and quality assurance is carried out. In traditional project management, the customers provide their expectations with regard to the project's products and the outcomes and benefits expected from them. The project manager defines those expectations in measurable terms and gets agreement from the customers as part of the planning phase. The project team develops the project's product according to agreed criteria over a specified period of time. If any of the agreed criteria are to be changed, changes can happen only through a formal change management system where impact of changes is estimated and the project manager gets approval from all relevant stakeholders. In Scrum, however, the product owner who represents the voice of the customer collaborates with the Scrum team and defines the acceptance criteria for the user stories related to the product to be delivered. The Scrum team then creates the product as prioritized in the Prioritized Product Backlog in a series of short iterations called sprints. The product owner can use the Prioritized Product Backlog to make changes to the requirements to keep pace with the user needs. The Scrum team can implement these changes either by terminating the current sprint or by adding the new requirements or changes to the sprint backlog for the next sprint, as each sprint is of very short duration, i.e., 1 to 6 weeks. One of the major advantages of Scrum over traditional project management is that Scrum emphasizes creating potentially shippable deliverables at the end of each sprint cycle instead of at the end of the project. So, the product owner and customers constantly inspect, approve, and accept deliverables after each sprint. And even if a Scrum project is terminated early, There is some value created prior to termination through the deliverables created in individual sprints. Hence, organizations can benefit significantly by using Scrum to manage their projects. This concludes our session on quality. Thank you for learning with us.